So let's talk about B Simone. Hi, I'm Sierra from Dear Sierra, and today we are going to be talking about B Simone. So my level of familiarity with B Simone is strictly via Instagram. I know she kind of like does her own makeshift kind of like reality show, I guess, via her own personal YouTube channel. But I first discovered her on Instagram so probably like a year or two ago, and then I was like, oh, that's the girl from that, you know? So I strictly know her from Instagram. Today I'm talking strictly from the perspective of a writer who is also a Black woman, who is also self-published. So that's where I'm coming from going into this. If you guys don't know me, aren't familiar with my work, aren't familiar with my website, my published book, all that stuff, that's kind of my background. Also, being someone that majored in psychology, that obviously lends its hand in my informed opinion. But for the most part, I am coming to you guys today as a self-published writer who is a Black woman in the industry. So this is gonna be a short video, I feel like, but I still wanted to address it. My perspective and opinion is that, to my understanding, she has made it known that she was not directly responsible for the plagiarism that happened with her book. She did not intentionally go and grab the content and copy and paste, or copy the formatting, or copy the font and the styling and the color scheme and the listicles and all that. She personally did not do that. However, she did state, and she is correct in saying, that she is the one that's responsible because it's her name on her brand, her name on her company, her name signing off on this stuff. The book is a representation of herself. And even if you do have a ghostwriter, once you stamp your name on something, you have to kind of like take responsibility for it, good or bad, whether that be criticism, accolades, whatever. And I just don't think business-wise it is smart to put out a product of any kind without knowing where it came from, without knowing who it's going to, and without kind of like thoroughly consuming it yourself. That being said, is it possible that she did proofread all of her work and then thought it looked great and had no idea that it came from someone else? That's very possible. Based on her story, she did not intentionally plagiarize. The people on her team plagiarized, but let me tell you why that's still a problem. Having people on your team that are willing to do things like that, and are willing to think that either they can get away with doing it, and or willing to think that you would be okay with doing that on their behalf, kind of makes me wonder, like, why did they think this would be a good idea? Did they think that she wouldn't care? Did they think that, like, oh, like, she just wants to get the work done, so let me just like hurry and get the work done, whether it's credible or authentic or not? It also makes me wonder how much of an entrepreneur you can really be when you're not all hands on deck. And I get it, because like I said, I self-published a book completely on my own. I was my own editor, my own manager, my own marketer, my own graphic designer, everything, you know? And it's a lot, it's really hard. My book was less than 100 pages, so I can't imagine creating a self-help book that I'm assuming is much longer and more dense in material, and having to do all that on your own. If you're not a writer, that's fine. There are plenty of celebrities, plenty of politicians, plenty of socialites that either they have a story they want to tell, but they're not a good writer, or they have a product they want to sell, but they're not a good content creator, so they hire someone to do that for them. That's fine. I'm not mad at you for not being a writer. I'm not mad at you for getting a ghostwriter, getting a team, getting someone to put the materials together for you. If I could afford it, I would likely do the same thing. I'm upset because you are a Black woman that is an entrepreneur, that is speaking on, you know, manifestation, working hard, self-motivation, being self-made, making it happen for yourself. And in the process of that, you are not really practicing what you preach. And by that, I mean, you aren't being thorough, you aren't being professional, you aren't being all hands on deck. And again, I don't expect her to write all of her own work. I don't expect her to do everything from top to bottom, but I do expect her to check in and know what's going on behind the scenes, know who's on her team, know their integrity, be double checking and triple checking the work, because at the end of the day, things like this happen where something is done and it's your name, your brand attached to it, and it is going to taint her for a long time, in my opinion. It's going to taint her to me. I can't speak for the entire writer community. I can't speak for the entire Black community by any means. But as someone that is in this community of especially Black authors, whether it's nonfiction, fiction, poetry, short stories, picture books, knowing what we go through to even get someone to read our work, knowing what we go through to even get even 20 clicks on a blog post, knowing what we go through to even have subscribers on YouTube, it's disheartening to know that there are people that their work was taken and plagiarized, and we may never know those. We know their names now because it's obviously public information, but how many of us have ever heard of those people before? How many of us are subscribed to those people's newsletters? How many of us have bought those people's content, you know? So it just kind of goes to show that there's always going to be a hierarchy. There's always going to be a popularity contest, and it's hurtful to know that someone that is not a part of this community and what I mean by part of the community, I mean a part of the writer community, in the sense that they are genuinely a writer. They are a self-proclaimed writer. That is their job title. That is their passion. That is their work. To have someone that doesn't take on that title, rightfully so, of course, and has many other titles and accolades that we can never take away from her by any means, but having someone that is not, at the end of the day, a writer, one, present themselves as such, and two, kind of attach their name to work that they didn't even personally have a connection with, or personally do any work to kind of cultivate or put any finishing touches on at all, is hurtful. And again, I'm not blaming B Simone for that. She did have a team that literally copy and pasted word for word, didn't even change a comma, didn't even change the font, didn't even change the phrases or a word count or anything, which I can't imagine how anyone would think that would be a good idea by any means. And that kind of, again, I'm talking in circles here, but that kind of leads me back to thinking, to some extent, her team must have thought that either she's not going to notice, she's not going to care, or she would sign off on me doing this anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and do it. And that kind of speaks back to her professional relationships as well. Whereas if I hire someone and I trust them and say, hey, I'm working on this project, I want you to do this project for me, I'm trusting you with my name, my brand, I'm trusting you to make executive decisions, and that person goes and robs a bank next door and brings it back to me as if they earned that money from selling my product, I have to question, why would you think that I would be okay with that? Because you thought that I would be proud of you for doing this and producing results this way. So that's kind of the way that I'm leaning into it. Maybe that's the psychology coming through with me. I don't want to speak too much on the whole like cancel culture thing, because that's a whole nother spiel. The Black community is going through a lot right now in general, and Black women are going through a lot right now. I don't want to take that as an excuse to not hold people accountable, though. We all have to hold each other to a higher standard. People do make mistakes, but as a businesswoman and a self-proclaimed entrepreneur, I have to say you're not practicing what you preach, and you're not being as thorough and as multifaceted as you claim to be. I don't know. Tell me what you guys think. I don't want to ramble too much and repeat myself, because I feel like I already have repeated myself quite a few times. I don't have anything negative to say about her. Again, I don't know her. I don't follow her very closely. But I do feel like this opens up so much room for conversation. So much room for conversation, especially with Black writers and the Black author community for sure. So hopefully this has sparked some kind of conversation. Let me know in the comments. I would love to discuss more topics about the Black writing community in general. Of course, my goal at the end of the day is to always share all that I've learned from self-publishing and just being in the writing world in general and going along in my own journey as a professional writer. So again, this is all about conversation, and I hope the conversation continues.